Hi there again, everybody. Boyd here with you, and welcome. Well, as you can see on the screenshot here, I'm doing an interesting subject here in the shop this go around. I'm a huge fan of the Mad Max film series, especially the original film Mad Max. And I've always wanted to build that classic Black Pursuit Special, or Interceptor as it was called. And I finally picked up one of these kits, and we're going to be building the car from the first film. This is a kit put out by Aoshima Models of Japan. As you can see on the box art here, the car, this particular kit is set up to be built as the desert version of the car that we saw in the second film, the Road Warrior. And there were some modifications that were done to the car for the second film because it kind of operated more off-road instead of on-road. So they removed the front air dam, or lower half of the front bumper that you can see there, for more ground clearance. And some massive fuel tanks were mounted in the trunk for longer range. And some other interior details. He gutted most of the interior. You could see he took out the passenger seat. He had some kind of shelving and netting in the back for all of his supplies and all that. But we're going to be building this one up as the original car when it was kind of in new condition. I really loved the way it looked. And in order to do that, we've got to buy an aftermarket parts kit, resin parts kit, to have the necessary parts to bring this back to the first version. I picked up a nice little resin kit from an eBay user named TM Resin. He shipped it out to me right away. It's a really nice little kit. We'll be showing you that here in just a second. And we'll talk a little bit more about this kit here. This particular kit that you see is what they call the special edition version, which comes with some metal parts for the blower assembly that you see sticking out of the hood there. I want to say a really quick shout out to a fellow YouTuber out there called Transition Modeler. I just happened to catch a video, three-part video series that he did of him building up this same kit, but he was doing it as the original version, like I want to do. And he pointed out a lot of, gave us a lot of tips about what to do and which kits to get. It turns out that there are several versions of this kit that were released by Aoshima, and only the first couple of releases are compatible with the aftermarket resin parts that we get in this conversion kit. Namely, in the newer release, they eliminated the rear seat of the interior completely. There's no center console. There's a couple other changes, but the first couple of early releases of this kit, including this one and another one that has a little bit different box art, includes the lower half of the rear seat, the center console, and a few other things. And so we're able to use the aftermarket resin parts to go along with that and complete the car. We get the lower half of the front air dam, we get the upper part of the rear seat, we get the rear deck lid, which is missing because of the fuel tanks, and a couple of the spoiler assemblies that have been cut off for the Road Warrior car. And we've got to install our own back glass. And as I said, we'll show you the little resin kit here in just a second. What I'm going to do here really quick, guys, is I'm going to set up the camera on the tripod, and we'll take an out-of-the-box look at this kit, and I will talk a little bit about the build plan for this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Give me just 1 second, I'll get the camera set up, and we'll be right back, everybody. Okay guys, well, it's time to take a look at the kit. I've got the box opened up here. You can see right off the bat we have our instruction sheet up on the top. These instructions are in Japanese, but you can pretty much get the idea of putting it together just by looking at the pictures here. It's pretty detailed. It's a nice instruction set. It goes through all the sub-assemblies here, starting off with the chassis that you're building up first, and moving on to the interior, and then finally the body. We'll have a little bit closer look at that in just a second. But let's take a look at some of these parts. We'll start off with the body first, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we have here that's the differences between the Road Warrior and the Mad Max car. You can see right off the bat that the rear deck lid is missing, and this support section here has been cut open to make room for those large fuel tanks that were placed in the car, and there's no back glass included with the kit. So we've got to create all that. Actually, just the back glass. Our resin parts are going to take care of the rest of this, and we'll show you that resin kit here in just a second. But the body is nicely molded. It's unfortunately it's what we call a curbside kit, so we don't have the ability to open the hood and see all the engine detail. We'll just have the blower sticking up through there, but it's still going to be really cool. There's a little bit of the engine detail molded into the bottom of the chassis, the oil pan, the exhaust system, and all that, but the body molding on this is nice and crisp. The detail looks to be totally spot on, the way it should look. Talking about this kit a little bit, there are some other aftermarket resin kits of this model that have been put out through the years, from Planet X and Frontier models and a few others, but if you go and do a little bit of research and have a look around, they're extremely rare and hard to find and really, really expensive. In fact, I just saw a 1/25th scale Holden Monero, which was actually the Knight Rider's car that you saw in the first film that he was chasing down, like the car that has that horrible crash. That kit was going for over $1,000 on eBay. So those older resin kits are really hard to find and very expensive. And when I had a look at some of the resin versions of the Interceptor, they didn't look that great. They really didn't look to be all that accurate. They kind of were a little bit poorly done. But this Aoshima kit is really, really nice. And this is, as far as I know, it's the only officially licensed kit that's been put out for this particular car. So this is really, really nicely done, and it's a nice size. It's in 1/25th scale. So the body looks great. Here, let's take a look at the, I'll get this bag open for you, and we'll take a look at some of these parts. We have our chassis and some other things here. As you can see, as I mentioned, this is a curbside kit, so you do get the detail here of the engine. We'll do a little bit of painting on that and make that look pretty good, but not much going on the bottom. You've just got your exhaust system and suspension parts and a basic complete chassis tub without a separate frame. So it's pretty basic as far as that goes. Here's some of the interior parts, and as you can see, we only get one seat, which is the driver's seat for this particular model. So our resin kit includes our second passenger seat. Here we have the dash with the top of the dash cover here. They do give you some nice decals for the gauges here, so that's a nice little touch. We've got this little bracket that mounts onto the dash, which is supposed to be a sort of an aluminum color. There's a blue police beacon that's mounted on that you can just see through the front of the windshield of the car. And as I mentioned, we're going to be doing some lighting on this one, so we're going to light up that little police siren, and there's also a little overhead radio console that was mounted above the windshield inside the car with a little bit of lighting going on with that. We're going to light that up as well. You've got the iconic customized shifter here, if you can see this, with the special function of the switch that activates the blower that turns it off and on. So that little detail is there. That's really nice. And we do get the interior door panels on this kit, which I think on some of the later releases of this model you do not get these, which is important as well, because the car and the Road Warrior, all the interior was basically stripped out of the car except for the dash and the passenger or the driver's side seat. So it's nice that those were included. And again, all the parts so far look to be really nice. I won't take these out of the well, maybe I will here. We'll just take a look at them. You get some nice vinyl or rubber tires, and you can see they're nicely detailed here. They've got the correct tread pattern molded into them, which I thought was a really nice touch, and we don't see your usual mold seam down the center on these, which I thought was really nice. Now, one of the things that I'm going to mention too is that I've ordered some aftermarket tire decals for this. This car had BF Goodrich Radial TA tires on that, and specifically in the front they were BF Goodrich Radial TAs, and in the rear they were BF Goodrich Radial TA 50s. So I found a nice guy online that makes some aftermarket BF Goodrich decals, and we'll be adding that onto these, but they have the tires have the proper BF Goodrich tread pattern, so that's really cool. They did a nice little detail touch on that as well, and I'll show you these decals when we get those in. They're not here yet. So there's a look at the tires, and then let's move on to the interior, and I'll talk about what I was mentioning earlier on the differences in the versions of these kits. Some chrome parts that we'll take a look at in a second. The interior tub, as you can see here, comes with the center console and the lower half of the rear seat. So on the newer releases of this kit, this center console's been eliminated and the lower half of the rear seat has been eliminated as well. So if you want to build the original version of the car, you pretty much have to look around for a couple of these older releases of the kit, and I'll put up some pictures of the box art for the older releases on the screen here for you. And as I said, our resin kit comes with the parts that we need. Our upper half of our back seat here, little filler panel that goes in, inside the rear window, and then our passenger seat. I almost pointed at this side, but we have a left-hand or right-hand drive Australian car, so our passenger seat's on this side, and I'll show you that seat in our resin kit here. So something important if you're interested in building the original series car from the first film. Here are our headlight buckets in chrome. We're actually going to be doing some lighting on this, as I mentioned. We'll be using some SMDs to light up the headlights and the tail lights and the side marker lights on the car. Here we have another little bag. Well, let's grab this little guy here first because this is interesting. This is a special edition of the kit, as I mentioned, so our blower parts here are actually some cast sort of pot metal looking parts, and I really like the look of the lower half of the blower casing. It looks just like it should on the original film. It didn't look totally brand new and all polished and everything. It was sort of kind of a duller looking, kind of an aluminum look. But the top half of the blower here, the intake itself, was actually really polished, so we'll probably paint that up with some of our polished aluminum all-clad paint for that to give that the proper look. But I think it's kind of cool to give that to you in a metal part. Here we have our, I'll pull these parts out of the bag for you. Give me just a second. We have our what are known in the car world as zoomy exhaust pipes. These are really wicked. These are four just basically straight pipes that come out on each side, so this thing would be really, really loud in person. Really no mufflers on the car, and with the supercharged engine it would really, really be mean, so that's actually really cool. And one thing that I notice on these is that the detail on this is for the Road Warrior version of the car, where the pipes had more of a straight look to them, as you see here, where in the original film they had sort of a pipe coming out of there, then they had the little chrome tips that look sort of like a bugle or a trumpet end on them, you know, a little bit flared. So we're going to see what we can do to fix that and make that look a little bit more correct to the way it did in the first film. Here's our tub for where our blower assembly sits, and we have a couple chrome parts here for the fuel tanks in the rear, which we won't be using, some other little detail parts. So some other little pieces there for you to see. This sprue here looks to me like it's mainly the parts for the Road Warrior version of the car, the desert version of the car. You can see we've got the really cool, they even included the cool little sort of homemade anti-theft or bomb device that Max had underneath of the car that we remember they talked about in the film, so that's pretty neat. Here we see the little modified sort of jump seat that was mounted on the passenger side door, on the inside of the door, for Dog and whoever else might be riding in the car. And then we've got this kind of bulkhead assembly that replaced the rear part of the interior, and then the massive fuel tanks that we see here. So we probably won't be using most of these parts to do the first version of the car like we intend on. Here we have some clear parts. I don't want to take these out of the bag yet because they get scratched really easy, but we've got our glass, and we've got our headlight covers here. We've got the tail lights, which I thought that was a nice touch that they actually include these. So we're going to be able to open up the taillight area on the model and actually light the headlights and the taillights, which will be really cool. We even get the clear inserts for the side marker lights at the rear. So that's going to be really easy, make that really easy to do all the lighting on that. I'll be cutting off the side glass here so that we have just the rear quarter glass filled in. Most of the time when he was driving the car in the film, the windows were down on the side, so we'll be kind of modifying that and getting that to work. So they've pretty much covered all the bases with this kit. Most Japanese kits, as they usually are really, really detailed, and the quality is just outstanding. The molds and everything look really good. Here we have our outside door mirrors, complete with the little chrome inserts that go in those. And here we'll take a look at the wheels and or the tires or the rims for this thing. Now, I believe that on some of the later versions of this kit, also, you get an extra set of rear wheels. If you pay attention to the film, there are some subtle differences to the car between the Road Warrior and Mad Max, and one of them in the Road Warrior, they used a larger rear tire and a larger diameter rear rim, which had a completely different pattern to the spokes than it did in the first film. They were kind of smaller spokes and there was more of them. And I think in the later releases of this kit you get those actual rims, an extra set, so you can do either one, which is kind of cool. But I'm glad that we do get the original wheels for our purposes here. You get an extra one here because he carried around a spare tire in the back, which we won't be using that either because this car didn't have that in the first film. And then here you can see we have our chassis parts, which is our differential with leaf spring suspension, our front cross member, the McPherson struts, the disc brake assemblies, the shock absorbers, the exhaust system, and a few other little things here and there. Center link. This does have a steerable front end, and here we have the little detail that goes on the body for part of the rear spoiler on the outside. So they kind of have the parts scattered around on the sprues here a little bit, but everything is numbered and should be pretty easy to find. So there's a look at the basic kit itself. Let me put all this stuff back in there really quick, and we will talk about the actual work that we want to do on this. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing some lighting on this, so we're going to light up the headlights and the taillights, and we're going to use a little strobing board for the blue police siren effect that we see inside the dash. So that should work out pretty good. Now you can see here in the back that these are filled in, so I'll just take my micro pin vise and open these up so that we can put our clear lenses over the top of that, and we'll do some lighting. This is all going to be enclosed, so we don't have to worry. We'll do some light blocking behind that and get that all sealed up. We've got our little side marker lights here that are supposed to be lit in sort of an amber color, and we'll get all that lighting done. I thought that there was that they included the overhead radio assembly or the console with this, and I'm hoping that they do. I don't see it on the parts here unless I missed it. Well, they do show it in the instructions, so I must have just missed it. But we're gonna, if we didn't have it, we could have easily scratch built that out of some sheet styrene. But we're gonna light this little console. In the film, they just had a couple little lights that were lit here in red and blue and amber, I think. So we'll do a little bit of fiber optics up in there and get that lit. So that'll look pretty neat. And yeah, I'm really excited about getting to work on this one. This is going to be great fun. So let's move this to the side really quick, and we'll show you the aftermarket resin parts that I mentioned. Again, I got this little kit from a fellow named TM Resin. He sells on eBay. He doesn't have these kits on there all the time, but they do pop up from time to time, and I think there's probably a couple of other people that produce them as well. You may want to go on eBay and look him up. That's TM Resin, and then maybe you can contact him directly if you want to get one of these kits, and maybe he'll make one up for you instead of having to wait. I was really lucky. The timing on this all kind of worked out perfectly, where I saw the video from Transition Modeler and talking about the conversion kit and all that, and then it was only just a few days later that it popped up on eBay and I was able to get it, so I was really happy about that. But you can see the first part I'm going to show you is the front air dam assembly. I've had to file the top half of this down just a little bit. It had some mold lines on there, but it was very easily taken care of, and you can see I've primed it, cleaned it up, and it's ready for some work. I'm going to be installing the sort of the driving lights, if you want to call them that, or parking lights down here in the bottom. So I've got to create some little clear lenses, which will be really easy to do, and then we're going to use a couple of SMDs to light these up, and I'll seal those all up, and we'll get that mounted onto the body. But it fits. All the test fitting I've done on this, everything fits really, really well. Here you can see we have the rear deck lid now that was missing from the kit, along with its spoiler piece here, which is really nice. And we have this little filler panel that goes in here up towards the front that we have to remove, actually part of the existing parts here. You can see these kind of little stubs that are right here. We just cut these off and glue this new piece in, and everything lines right up. It's a really well designed little resin kit. It fits really nice. You can see here we have the upper half to the rear seat that was not included in the kit, and the passenger side bucket seat. Again, it's really nicely done. It's exactly like the kit supplied driver's seat, matches perfectly. And we have our little filler panel here, or package tray if you want to call it, that goes up by the back window in the car to cover up that gap. The only thing that we have to add ourselves is some back glass, and I'll just be using some clear sheet styrene to do that. Be very easy to do since the back window on this car is basically flat. So there you have a look at that, guys. And this little conversion kit runs around $20-something, so it's not bad. And I'm really glad that somebody put this out to allow us to be able to do this. So there's a look at what our project is, guys. We're going to be back with our next video, which will begin the buildup of this one. We're going to start off with doing all the modifications and getting the body all prepped up and get all of our aftermarket parts put on, and all the putty work and everything done, the body primed and painted. And then we'll start working on the custom lighting that we're going to be doing on this. I'm going to mount this on a diorama. This is going to be really cool. We're going to have sounds from the film. I actually managed to find a 1/25th scale, actually 1/24th scale, same scale as the kit, of a classic Kawasaki KZ1000 from the mid to late 70s. It was correct, like we saw the bikes that we saw in Mad Max. And I've just got to look around and see if I can find a figure in the proper scale so I can do the toe cutter, the main bad guy in the film. And I want to depict in a diorama that last scene where Mad Max is chasing him down and just before he crashes into the semi. So that's going to be really, really cool when we get this all put together, guys. So I hope you'll come back and check out the rest of the build series. We're going to have a lot of fun with this one. So we'll be back in just a couple more days. It won't be long, I promise, guys, because I'm really chomping at the bit to get started on this one. So this one's going to get built up pretty quickly. All right, guys, so we hope you'll check that out. Until we see you next time, everybody, take care out there, everybody, and happy modeling.